I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, November the 26th, 2013. While continuing to criticize the interim deal reached with Iran in Geneva this weekend, Israel is focusing now on how it can impact the permanent agreement between the Islamic Republic and world powers that now needs to be worked on. Israeli officials say that they recognize that the interim agreement that the P5+1 reached with Iran over the weekend is a done deal and are focused on what Israel can do to influence the permanent deal with Iran. As we reported to you, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced yesterday that Israel would be sending a team to the United States to work on the deal, which Netanyahu said must lead to one result: the dismantling of Iran's military nuclear capability. The Prime Minister said of the weekend's outcome that it is true that the international pressure which we applied was partly successful and has led to a better result than what was originally planned, but this is still a bad deal. He said it reduces the pressure on Iran without receiving anything tangible in return, and the Iranians who laughed all the way to the bank are themselves saying that this deal has saved them. Israel's position is that in any permanent agreement with Iran, Iran must dismantle its centrifuges, transfer out of the country its stockpiles of enriched uranium, close the uranium enrichment facility at Fordo, and stop work on the heavy water reactor at Arak.
I was born to both my parents were...
Israeli Justice Minister Tzipi Livni suggested that advancing talks and ultimately solving the conflict with the Palestinians would help Israel in dealing with Iran. She told a conference at the Knesset yesterday that continuing serious peace talks can allow the Arab world to put its conflict with Israel aside to cooperate on Iran. Livni said solving the conflict with the Palestinians would enable a united front with Arab countries against Iran. Livni noted that the interim deal with Iran was for a period of 6 months, the same amount of time remaining in the initial 9-month period given to Israel and the Palestinians by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry for peace negotiations. She said, "I suggest that we stop whining because of what was signed in Geneva and use the 6 months to make sure Iran doesn't fool the world into enabling a final status deal that would be dangerous for Israel." Livni added, "and to reach a significant breakthrough on 2 states for 2 peoples that will be good for Israel." Meanwhile, America's pro-Israel lobby, AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, reacted to the interim deal reached in Geneva. AIPAC President Michael Kassan sent out a statement to Capitol Hill expressing what they feel needs to be done in light of the agreement, and also included remarks from various members of Congress who are also concerned. The AIPAC memo stated that the U.S. must ensure compliance on the part of Iran and that any final deal would deny the Islamic Republic of achieving nuclear capability. AIPAC further said that the interim deal with Iran raises many concerns and that Congress must legislate additional sanctions so that Iran will face immediate consequences should it renege on its commitments or refuse to negotiate an acceptable final agreement. The National Council of Young Israel also reacted to the interim deal with Iran. They are urging the Senate to enact enhanced sanctions against Iran that include an automatic trigger. The trigger would be either by a violation of the agreement by Iran, including if they continue to enrich uranium, or to occur in 6 months if no final agreement to end Iran's pursuit of a nuclear weapon is achieved. Meanwhile, the Times of Israel reports that President Obama, in addressing a fundraiser in Beverly Hills last night, defended the deal. He said the Iranians' agreement to pause their nuclear enrichment program, reduce to 0 the amount of 20% enriched uranium in their possession, and allow for, quote, unprecedented inspections, in some cases daily inspections. The president said, now that's the right thing to do. It's good for the United States. It's good for our allies. It's good for Israel. Adding, because I've said and I will repeat that I don't take any options off the table as commander-in-chief when it comes to the security of the United States or our allies. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called for continued negotiations between Israel and the European Union in order for the two to reach an understanding that would allow Israel to participate in the Horizon 2020 project. Israel has been holding intensive talks with the EU since August to try and find a way for Israel to partake in the EU's prestigious research program, in light of the EU's recent settlement guidelines, which ban funding and cooperation between the EU and Israeli organizations that are located over the pre-1967 borders. As it stands now, any agreement signed by Israel with the EU would have to include a clause stating that the agreement is not applicable over the Green Line. The Israelis have been hoping the EU would show some flexibility in the implementation of these guidelines and presented a compromise to them last week that was rejected. Last night, Netanyahu told Justice Minister Tzipi Livni, as well as the Foreign Ministry, to find a new compromise, and Livni is set to meet with EU Chief Catherine Ashton to discuss it in the near future. Israel's President Shimon Peres presented the President's Medal of Distinction last night to renowned author, Nobel laureate, and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel for, quote, his unique contribution to the memorial of the Holocaust and in light of his uncompromising drive for peace and tolerance. The medal is the highest civilian award in Israel and was presented to Wiesel at a ceremony in New York. Peres said bestowing the medal on Wiesel was a great honor and privilege. He said the Holocaust taught us that killing isn't done just with guns and weapons, but also with apathy. And you, Elie, are saving the world from that apathy. You are waving the flag of humanity, preventing bloodshed and challenging racism and anti-Semitism, as well as preventing war. Wiesel accepted the award, telling the Israeli president that he was completely overwhelmed. He said, Israel is in the center of my life, and even though I don't live in Israel, Israel lives within me. He said, I now see myself as an honorary Israeli. Life is composed of moments, not only years, and this moment is worth an entire life. And the Simon Wiesenthal Center said it is expanding its poster and reward campaign in Germany to track down Nazi war criminals due to the overwhelming response to the campaign so far. Top Nazi hunter and head of the Wiesenthal's Jerusalem branch, Ephraim Zuroff, said yesterday that the response to Operation Last Chance 2, which was launched back in July of this year, resulted in tips on 111 possible suspects from 19 countries. Zuroff told the Associated Press that the response was beyond anything the organization had expected. Most of those possible suspects were in Germany, with 81 in total, followed by the U.S., who had 8, and Canada with 3. Zuroff said that so far 4 of the tips have turned into concrete cases being investigated by prosecutors in Germany at the present time. The Jewish Week reports that a textbook has been published on the Arab-Israeli conflict, co-authored by a Palestinian, an Israeli, and an Egyptian. Arabs and Israelis, Conflict and Peacemaking in the Middle East is a collaboration of Shai Feldman, Abdelmonem Saeed Ali, and Khalil Shikaki. It's based on a course that the three have taught as a team at the Crown Center for Middle East Studies at Brandeis University since 2006. At a panel discussion earlier this week upon the book's release, Brandeis University Provost Steve Goldstein said the book demonstrates that collaboration doesn't require a uniformity of views, but rather the openness to listen to different perspectives, adding this is a prerequisite for peacemaking. And turning to tonight's Shalom TV programming for Tuesday evening, November the 26th, former Union for Reform Judaism President Eric Yaffe speaks about American Jews and Israel at 8 p.m., and then at 9, Yaffe, together with Middle East Forum President Daniel Pipes, join Mark Golub to debate Western responses to Islam. That's tonight here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, November the 26th, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.